In a county in central China called Zhecheng, a machine roughly the size of a washing machine is crushing a lump of graphite. 6 anvils close in from every direction at once. The pressure reaches around 60,000 atmospheres, comparable to conditions 150 kilometers down in the Earth's mantle. The temperature holds near 1500 degrees Celsius. Inside sits a seed crystal about the size of a grain of rice. Over the next week, carbon atoms migrate through molten metal and settle onto that seed, layer by layer. What comes out is a diamond. Same crystal lattice, same hardness, same refractive index as a stone pulled from a mine shaft in Botswana. A gemologist with a loupe cannot tell them apart. 40 years ago, Zhecheng was known for chili peppers and beef cattle. Now here's the number that matters, and almost every version of this story gets it backwards. Everyone quotes the gap between lab-grown and mined. A 1-carat natural stone still runs around $4,000. A comparable lab-grown one now averages under $700 at retail. But look at lab-grown prices on their own terms. Idan Golan, the analyst whose wholesale index the trade actually uses, has tracked them since July 2018. That index is down 96% on a product with no cartel, no mines, and no marketing budget to defend it. That second number is the one that tells you something. If scarcity had genuinely been the source of value, lab-grown would have settled in as a cheaper but still expensive alternative, a discount product holding a price. Instead, it fell almost all the way to what it cost to produce, which means the thing being sold was never the stone. Start with how the price got built, and I'll keep this short because it's the part everyone already knows. In the 1930s, diamond sales were falling and engagement rings did not universally involve diamonds. In plenty of places, they were colored stones, a plain gold band, or nothing. De Beers hired an advertising agency, and what followed wasn't really advertising. It was the construction of a custom. Diamonds on the hands of film stars, etiquette columnists explaining what a proper proposal required. In 1947, a copywriter named Francis Garrity wrote 4 words: "A diamond is forever." That line did 2 jobs, and the second is the clever part. It tied the stone to permanence, which sells rings. And it made reselling feel like a small betrayal, which keeps secondhand stones off the market, because a real resale supply would have revealed what they were actually worth. Then De Beers held the supply directly, managing at its peak roughly 80% of the world's rough diamond distribution. The whole system rested on one principle: diamonds are not actually rare. The earth holds enormous quantities, but the public has to believe they are, and that belief only survives if supply never grows large enough to disprove it. Now the part nobody covers, and it explains everything. China did not build those presses to make engagement rings. It built them to cut metal. The first Chinese synthetic diamond came in the 1960s, and the goal was industrial independence. Drill bits, saw blades, grinding wheels. By 1965, engineers in Henan province had built the country's first 6-anvil press. And for decades, that industry turned out small brown stones that were useless as jewelry and excellent as abrasive. And that is still, overwhelmingly, what Zhecheng makes. The county produces around 6 billion carats of industrial single crystal a year, and roughly 15 billion carats of diamond micropowder. Against that, its gem quality output is a little over 10 million carats. Sit with those numbers. The jewelry business is a rounding error on top of an industrial base thousands of times larger, which answers the question the scarcity story cannot. Zhecheng could afford to let gem prices collapse because gems were never what paid for the presses. The machines were bought, the expertise existed, and the abrasives business carried on regardless. De Beers was defending a price. China was selling surplus capacity. If you want more of these, the ones where the decisive fact turns out to be something nobody's looking at, subscribe and turn notifications on. By 2023, China was producing over 70% of the world's synthetic diamonds, and Zhecheng alone now accounts for roughly 60% of China's output. The Knot runs one of the largest wedding surveys in the world, over 10,000 American couples a year. In 2019, 12% of engagement rings had a lab-grown center stone. In 2024, it passed 50% for the first time. In 2025, it hit 61%, and the incumbent has taken serious damage. Anglo-American, which owns 85% of De Beers, has written the business down 3 years running around $6.8 billion in total. Its carrying value now sits at $2.3 billion against $9.2 billion in 2023. Anglo has been trying to sell it since 2024, and this summer was reportedly in talks to hand over its stake for about $1 billion. Now the honest part, because 3 things complicate this. First, this is not a clean story about disruption winning. The collapse has been brutal for lab-grown producers too. WD lab-grown diamonds, once the second largest American manufacturer, filed for bankruptcy in 2023. Chinese producers now mainly compete against each other, and margins across the category have been crushed. The winners here are buyers. Second, the collapse is largely over. Wholesale prices fell 13% year-on-year in the second quarter of 2026, the slowest decline in years, and 1-carat rounds actually rose by 1%. The floor is production cost, and the market has more or less reached it. Third, natural diamonds are not finished. Measured by insured value rather than by unit, lab-grown sits closer to 48%, because a mined ring still averages around $7,600 against $4,900. What collapsed is the middle of the market, not the top, and lab-grown resale typically recovers only 10 to 30% of what you paid. So here's where this lands. De Beers spent 80 years arguing that a diamond means something because it's rare. What a county in Henan demonstrated is not that diamonds aren't rare. Geologists had been saying that for a century. It demonstrated that rarity was never doing the work. 61% of American couples switched, and the object still means what it meant. What didn't survive was the margin, and the strangest part is that none of it was aimed at the diamond trade. Nobody in Zhecheng set out to dismantle a cartel. They were making grit for drill bits, got very good at it, and noticed the same presses could make something the world was paying $4,000 for. The rest was capacity finding a use.